Guys, we're here today with the wonderful Ruth Milligan. Did I say your name correctly?
Yes.
Yes. Who's just recently finished her dystopian science fiction novel. So we're going to talk a little bit about the book itself, and we're also going to talk about some of the challenges she faced. Probably a lot of you guys will be able to relate to these things, how she overcame them, and how she finished and published her first novel, which is the goal of everybody in this group. So, Ruth, we're meeting you for the first time. Do you want to tell us like little pinch of information about you? Where are you based?
Yeah. I live in Oregon.
Mm,
When I'm not writing, I work at a restaurant as a night manager.
nice. All right.
Yeah. So I write during the day and then I
Work
work at
during the
night.
night. That's quite a good
Yeah.
balance. That's quite a nice
Keeps
balance.
me busy.
Definitely. And so this book, I'm going to do my best to explain to people what it's about. It's set in the future, um,
hmm
and we have a world not too long from now where humanity has kind of mucked up the environment to the degree that a lot of animals and also some people have started to mutate and become dangerous. So,
hmm
world where suddenly nature is mutated and everybody has built the fences. They're living in settlements with fences, towns with fences around them to keep
hmm
out dangerous wildlife. And so we're following this main character, Adam, right?
Right.
Who's working as a researcher on the mutations. And everything starts to go south when he realizes he might just be mutating himself.
Right.
People will have to pick up the book to find out
Much, yeah.
what made you want to write about that. What's it about?
Well, the funny thing is, it started as a National Novel Writers Month,
Oh yeah.
kind of, and it started out being about something totally different.
Uh-huh.
And I learned that planning a novel is a really smart idea because then as I went along, it ended up being something else, and I had two novels in one.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. And when you kind of embarked on writing this,
Mhm,
before you met us, what were like
mhm.
those challenges or those sticking points that you were having? What kind of roadblocks were you running into?
Well, I finished my novel and I kept editing it and kept editing it. And I actually did send it to an editor to look through it.
Okay.
And, she gave me like 5 or 6 pages. And she's like, okay, well, you have two books in one. There's too much going on. It's too confusing.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know how to
Like the-
separate the two. And it was just too much of a task.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess we connected at that point, and then do you want to tell people a little bit about some of the things that we did together to work on the book?
sure.
What did you find most helpful?
Um, Definitely the feedback and the encouragement. I learned a lot about how a story should be structured. I had a lot of missing things in there. I
Yeah,
thought just, I read a lot of books. I can figure out how to do this. And
yeah.
yeah,
It's
you mentioned things, and I was like, oh, I can't believe I didn't see that. So
uh, no,
it's
I
like a
think
bird's eye view. Yeah.
yeah, like the two things you're talking about are feedback, right? And then also having a bit of a process to follow. And I think it's interesting what
hmm
you're saying about doing double the work. I always say to people, if you start working with an editor, with somebody like us earlier on in the process, you will save
hmm
effort. It's not going to interrupt your flow. It's going to help your flow. But
Yeah.
a lot of people don't believe me until they actually get further in and they're like, oh God, I didn't realize how much was not going to work here.
Right.
What do you say? Because it's interesting because we're working together. We started working together on the second book, the sequel now. Are you
hmm
finding that from the beginning you're approaching it a bit differently?
Definitely. Doing that planning in the beginning made it a lot easier. I mean, I'm almost done with the rough draft,
Yeah.
and I think it's
Nice.
it's a lot stronger book than the rough draft, obviously, of the first one.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's
And
it's a lot easier. I kind of know where I'm going.
yeah, and hopefully this time around, like you don't have to do like a rewrite or massive changes or anything like that because
Yeah,
you've already got the process to follow. So you know
yeah.
how to build a story that has like a strong spine to it, a strong backbone. And then that means that the edits is just about making smaller changes rather than having to
hmm
redo and rethink the whole thing.
Right.
Honestly, for anybody who's here, who's watching this, who has had to redo or rethink their whole book, I'm telling you right now, that's not necessary. A lot of people that we talk to as well have this idea that you have like doing a second draft or a third draft, you're supposed to rewrite your book several times. If you get it right the first time around, and by get it right, I mean you just have the right elements in place in the right kind
Hmm.
of sequence. You don't have to rewrite the whole thing. The editing is just about making smaller changes, but you have to make sure you got a solid process to start.
Mm.
Um, Ruth, is there anything else that you would want to mention? You know, having gone through the whole process, are there any lessons that you learned that you feel like you're kind of carrying into book two? What what do you feel like you really took away from actually finishing a novel?
I
Yeah,
learned that it's it's good also to focus on a really strong protagonist
right,
because she
right.
was kind of absent in the first time I wrote it,
Yeah,
and making her character really strong. Actually, it was a lot of fun too, and
yeah.
it really added a lot to the book.
But
More
you're talking about
conflict and
hmm,
yeah,
you're
for
talking about
sure.
the antagonist. Yeah,
Yeah.
the antagonist. Yeah, absolutely. That was for anyone that's curious, that was kind of one of the things that was missing was like a character who creates conflict in the story, that antagonist character. So
Hmm.
I think you did a really good job with bringing that character to life. Ruth, that's great. I think we probably covered most of what we wanted to talk about. Obviously, we'd love to have some people pick up the book as well. So I'm going to include a link to it above. It's
Okay.
published. Currently, it's available on Amazon. Is the paperback available yet?
It'll be available on December 15th, this
Nice.
Friday.
All right. Just as a closing note,
Hmm.
if there's somebody, if you met someone who was in the same boat that you were in, a couple,
Hmm.
they've got a first book, they've got a lot of it written, but they're wanting to make sure they get it right, and they're not sure whether it would be a good idea to have some help with it or not. What would you advise that person?
But feedback is really crucial when you're writing a book. It takes more than one person. That's one thing I really learned. I thought you just like sat in your at your computer and typed away and sent it off, and there you go. But there's a lot of different people that make a book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not just us either, also all of the test readers and the people in the community that we provided. And yeah, you're right. There's a reason why people have an acknowledgement section with names in it. If you're sitting there and you're thinking, I've never shown the book, so I don't even know who'd be in my acknowledgements. Something's going wrong. Right.
Yeah, my list is pretty long.
Good, good. Ruth, thank you for coming on and talking to me. And can't wait to get back to work on book two and start to build up a bit of an audience for book one as well. So once again, congratulations on finishing. Really well done with everything.
All right, thanks.